Hey guys, Yips here coming with another video, and this one is going to be about Star Augur Etraeus. And the reason I'm talking about this boss fight today is because he's the third boss in the 10-part boss series of Nighthold that I'm going to be covering, and he's a great boss because he is a pure single target boss fight until phase 3 where he becomes an ad cleave, so it has all sorts of good aspects for an Affliction warlock due to the fact that he is an ad boss fight, but he's also a single target boss fight, and this means that you get to kind of optimize both in the raid encounter and you can separate yourself from other Affliction warlocks, especially in phase 3. So later I'll talk about how to do that, but first let's talk about some of the mechanics that you're going to have to deal with on this boss fight, okay? So this boss has a ice phase, he has a fell phase, and he has a shadowy phase, okay? And during the ice phase, the only mechanic that you have to worry about is a circle. I believe it's called Icy Injection or something like that, and all you have to do is move out of the raid group as after about 10 seconds or so, you will become frozen, unable to move, and you will shatter, and anyone within this circle will take a large amount of AoE damage. So as long as you are not standing within that circle, you will not kill anybody and everyone will be really happy. So obviously whenever you get that debuff, make sure you're moving out of the raid, no one's on top of you, so you don't kill anybody. Now after this phase, you will be moving into the fell phase, and the fell phase is very simple. It's similar to a Ren Feral mechanic. What will happen is he will give a debuff out onto several players. All you have to do is put this debuff on the edge of the room, because what happens is as this debuff ticks down, you will be dropping fell puddles under your feet. So you want to make sure that you're dropping these fell puddles in good locations, as range can spread out the room and still be in range of healers and things like that, and not have to worry about these fell puddles being all over the place and unable to move, okay? So just make sure you're dropping those fell puddles in reasonable locations. That's phase 2. Now phase 3, what's going to happen is he's going to spawn a thing that should not be or something like that, or thing that should not exist, some sort of giant ad, and what you need to do is you need to switch and prioritize that ad down with DPS, simply because after a amount of time this ad will spam a cast, and after so many casts it will deal increased damage and just one-shot your raid. So he is a priority ad target that needs to die, otherwise he will end up wiping your raid group. And he also spawns these little things called voidlings, but we'll get into those a little later and how to abuse your DPS on the voidlings. So those are the mechanics of the boss fight that you need to be worrying about as an Affliction warlock. Now let's talk about what sort of talents that I'm running. The talents that I'm running are going to be Malefic Grasp, Absolute Corruption, Siphon Life, Effigy, and Grimoire of Supremacy. The reason I'm running these talents is because they are the best single target talents in my opinion, and I feel like I do the best with them. So those are the talents I'm running. Let's talk about how to do damage with these talents, okay? So the way that you want to do damage with these talents is you want to be maintaining your 3 dots on the boss, your Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. Obviously your Corruption is permanent, and you only want to be maintaining your Agony on your Soul Effigy. It is a DPS loss to maintain Siphon Life on your Effigy without movement, simply because it does not do enough damage to warrant a global cooldown that could have been used on casting Drain Life or a more useful damaging ability. So that's the reason you're not Siphon Lifing your Effigy. It's just simply not enough damage for how much time it takes you to cast it on the Effigy. So this is phase 2. You can see I'm just doing the simple rotation of, Agony, Siphon Life, Agony, my Effigy, dump a couple UAs, and then Reap and Drain into the boss. Now, I am playing around something in this boss fight. I am varying my rotation slightly, so you see sometimes I use 4 UAs, sometimes I use 1 UA, and this is simply because I'm running with a proc, okay? And so let's talk about what a proc is. A proc is a thing like a trinket, like Chrono Shard. Whenever it procs, you want to be doing as much damage as you can, because during modifiers in World of Warcraft, it's efficient to stack DPS, simply because of the way that multipliers work. So what trinket or what sort of proc am I using here? I'm using Sifu's Secret, okay? And the way that I'm proccing Sifu's Secret, if you're wondering, is with my Infernal. It is a single target DPS increase to be using Infernal with Sifu's. Now the way that you cast proc Sifu's with Infernal is you use the Meteor Stun on the boss, and you may be saying, wait, but it doesn't stun the boss, so why does Sifu's proc? It doesn't actually have to stun the boss in order for Sifu's to proc. All it has to do is deal its damage to the boss, and then Sifu's will proc. So using Sifu's in this boss fight is a DPS increase if you do have it over another legendary that's not a DPS legendary, so I do recommend you guys use that. Now the way that I'm using around it is every minute I know I'm going to have that 25% haste or that many bloodlust. So what I'm doing is every single time, 30 seconds before that window, I'm making sure I'm saving my Reap stacks, I'm making sure I'm not going overboard dumping my souls into the boss in order to maximize my DPS on him. So that's what I'm doing on this boss fight. That's how I'm playing about. I'm just making sure I'm optimizing myself around that Sifu's, and then outside of the Sifu's, I'm just going about the regular single target damage rotation, which is just maintain Agony, maintain Siphon Life on good timers, cast UA twice or 3 times, drain it into the boss. When my dots are about to fall off, maybe I'll life tap, refresh my dots, and then go back into a dump. You always want to make sure you have high mana before you go into a dump, okay? But this isn't what I really wanted to focus on. I don't really want to focus on, dealing single target damage to the boss fight. I can do that in a guide on a training dummy. Let's talk about how you can abuse yourself or abuse damage as a warlock on this boss fight, okay? Now, the best way that you're going to be able to abuse damage on this boss is going to be by the voidlings, okay? Now, these little voidlings that spawn on the boss, you can really abuse them by just dotting them one time, and when they die, they give you a stack of reap, so they give you a soul, and they also give you Wrath of Consumption, okay? So it is very high priority as an Affliction warlock to be dotting these adds. You deal such increased damage under reap, so generating these, like basically having 100% reap up time during phase 3 is very, very good. So not only do you generate, you get that 100% uptime during phase 3, you also get the Wrath of Consumption, which is an additional 10% increased DPS during the boss fight. So it's a very, very powerful thing to abuse. It's a very, very powerful thing to have on a boss fight like this. So make sure you're dotting those. Make sure you're getting your Wrath of Consumption. Make sure you're getting your reap stacks and things like that. And the second thing that you want to abuse is the add that spawns. So the way that you want to be dealing with the add that spawns is you want to be making sure that whenever the add spawns, you forget about Siphon Life entirely. All you want to be maintaining when the big add spawns is Agony, Corruption, and UAs, and you want to maintain those on all 3 targets, but obviously you want your UAs to only go into the thing that should not be. So you only want to be casting UAs into that and draining them. Make sure you're dotting the voidlings in order to get those reap stacks, able to get those procs and things like that. And this boss fight should be fairly straightforward. So that's how you really want to abuse your DPS on this boss fight. You want to abuse it by dotting the voidlings for not only all of the souls, but also the soul flame damage, the Wrath of Consumption. You want to make sure you're abusing cleave on the thing that should not be. The cleave on the thing that should not be is very powerful because of the way that this build works. You're generating a lot more shards with 3 agonies instead of 2. You're generating a lot more damage from 2 absolute corruptions, and you're still just basically going about your single target damage rotation. You can think about it like that, right? You're maintaining 3 agonies instead of an agony, a Siphon Life, and an agony. You're just replacing that Siphon Life with an additional agony, which is doing more damage, right? So that's how you want to play this boss fight. That's how you can really abuse the mechanics. It's a pretty bland boss fight in terms of mechanics, but in phase 3, when these Void League spawns, when that ad spawns, that's where you're really going to be able to shine as an Affliction warlock, and that's really where you're going to be able to outperform other ones, simply because of that ad abusing. And yeah, so hope you guys like this video. Hope this helped you a little bit about this boss fight. Hope it kind of helped you show what sort of talents and things like that you should be running for this boss. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys tune into the other Nighthold guides I have coming out soon, and I will see you all later.